When I was broke, I had rich
We dance off
habits,
the top, just so you know.
When I was broke, I had rich habits.
All right. Happy New Year, 2022. 2022.
I had to
That's
think
right.
about that as well.
Yeah,
I was like,
it's hard to say. It
no.
doesn't roll off the tongue like the other ones.
Yeah.
We're back with episode 25 of the Master Keys podcast. I'm Chandler.
Neal and Andreino.
It's Neal, and we have some guests today. Neal, you want to introduce your guests because you know them
Yeah.
personally?
So,
Is that a weird thing to say?
as for the internet, Rise Renos. we have
Yeah.
Scott and Kirsti. They are young real estate investors who got started a couple years ago.
Like 2019, 2020?
Yep.
First
Yeah.
investment
Oh, wow,
property in
okay.
2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they've navigated the pandemic, the crazy market, have managed
Solid
to grow.
time to get in.
Yeah.
Get in.
right in the thick of things. I guess no prior experience really, and not really any family background to it either.
None.
No.
So I think it'll be interesting for a lot of people to hear what you guys have to say, because there's a lot of people in the same boat.
In addition to doing the work, you also have a strong social media presence, which I think is really interesting. We can talk a bit about that as well.
Yep.
Usually off the top, we hit with some news and stuff. Neal, you've always had a lot going on. Anything exciting right now?
Nothing too crazy, kind of the standard stuff. We have my personal house flooded.
Oh, yeah. It's
So that's
actually,
fun.
I feel like this is the after hours edition of the show for people who actually watch it. We're here. It's kind of a late recording, so the mood is nice.
It's
It's rainy and overcast here in Halifax, as it often is.
Yeah.
But we're recording this. Well, while we're recording this, it's raining for, I don't know, like the 7th day of the last 10. So between the three of you, you have a lot of expertise on flooding. But Neal, professionally, but also personally with your lake place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we talked about it last time, or I guess 2 episodes ago. I have a restoration company, so we deal with flooding, fires, and that. So in the last couple of weeks, we've had a lot of rain, and the ground is saturated, and so now it's coming into people's basements.
Business is good.
Business is booming. Yeah, so we had quite a few floods over the last 2 weeks, and one of them also being my house. So, luckily my basement was half finished. We were building a basement apartment in there, and it flooded out. So we just pulled all the framing up, and we're putting in a trench system to handle the water in the future. But it was dry as a bone before that. And I think Scott and Kirsti can also speak to this because they might be facing something similar.
It's never leaked until it leaks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We did that. Yeah. We put the interior drain tile in, and it still leaked.
It still went
Oh, you
through.
did an
Yeah.
interior whipping
Yeah.
system? Did your sump pump fail or just...
No, it was
It
just
was going
pumping it
the whole
out into
time.
a full storm
Ah,
space. And
this
right.
is... Okay, we're going to get to all this in a second. But that is a serious issue. I was driving down Windmill Road one of the nights as this was going on, and it was coming out of the sewer covers.
Yeah.
Like the manhole covers. I'm sure they don't call it that anymore, but
Yeah.
it was coming out of the holes. And there was another one down the road where they had it stopped by cops because it had blown off. There was enough water pressure in there that it had blown the top right off. So they had to close the road so people wouldn't drive in it. So that means there was so much water that the system, and those main lines are pretty big. Like, what's the diameter on a main line?
I'd say probably 2 feet.
Yeah.
18
At least,
inches, 2
yeah,
feet.
Yeah.
I'd say for sure.
And it was full of
Yeah.
water.
It's when it rains in the winter because you get all the
Yeah.
snow, so
Yeah.
you have like this
Yeah.
huge water load sitting, and then plus the rain, so you get the double down, and it comes in like unbelievably fast.
So, any issue at your apartments? That's every landlord hates when it rains.
Yeah, so I was expecting a ton, and we actually sent a note out to all of our tenants saying, "Hey, if it's leaking, let us know, please, ASAP." Versus like letting it get really bad and trying to fix it with a pot, and then the whole place is flooded and
Yeah,
destroyed.
yeah. Then they call it like, oh, and this happened. It's like, why didn't you tell me?
Yes, because I've had a few where we get in the unit and the whole wall's like fallen off. The drywall's just gone, and I'm like, did anyone like think to maybe give me a shout and say, "Hey, there's no drywall and this stuff's leaking everywhere."
And they're like, I tagged you in Reddit.
Oh no! Yeah, so instead of
put you in
reaching
the
me through Reddit,
subcategory.
I asked them to message us, and we actually didn't somehow have a single leak.
Oh, that's always so good.
Yeah, it was great. I was very happy about that. I think we had a bunch in the last year, and so all of the buildings we made a big effort to get them done up in a way that they're not going to have leaks, and so we were kind of prepared this time. So yeah, fortunate there. Personal house, not so fortunate, but basement was only half finished, so I'm not freaking out.
Yeah, some of that also depends if you have below grade apartments. The nice thing when you start switching over to, larger multis, most of the units are above grade. You might have a few units in the basement that are half below grade.
Yeah.
So you start mitigating that risk a little bit. But there were plenty. I think I had 5 in total, either past clients or my properties or what have you. And these were all places that they said the same thing. it's never leaked before. Like this was sideways blowing rain.
Yep.
And it was kind of the perfect conditions. And I remember the worst storm I ever had as a landlord, and it flooded a basement, was right before Christmas, a mild night of just nonstop rain, but while the ground was saturated. But increasingly the issue is the sewer mains backing up. Not so much that, I've got a crack in my foundation, or not even so much that my water table in my immediate area is a problem, because you can mitigate that really easily with these interior weeping systems.
Now. Yeah.
The problem is when those main lines back up, there's nothing you can do. Like it just starts coming out every orifice of your property.
I'm looking at these guys because they literally posted videos online, and it was just like toilets just like backing up.
Recirculating.
And Halifax Water, I talked about at length about how like garbage their permits are and how much they've gone up.
Yeah.
And like I just dropped off the permit for
So you just dropped off 300K and then your basement's full of water.
Yeah. Well, it was only 180K because we got it in before the deadline, at which time they were going to raise them, I think 40%. So it was going to be 300K. We got in there, slid in under the, right in there in that sweet spot of 180K. But they're saying it's to upgrade all of these systems that haven't been upgraded in how many years, which raises the obvious question: where was all the other money going to? We've been paying for this infrastructure for years, and somehow it's still not enough money. But they do clearly need to do it because we're increasingly covering, we're paving paradise. So the ground is just not like absorbing. The ground is not taking the water in the way it used to because there's all these hard surfaces now. So you get this increased runoff and a lot of flooding, man. A lot of flooding.
And this leads to higher insurance rates, which is why we're all freaking out about a rent cap, because insurance is already up 30% year over year. And now things like this take place. And this isn't just happening like locally in Atlantic Canada. It's happening everywhere. Just with climate change, there's a lot more big climate events. And so you're seeing claim volumes way through the roof. And so insurance rates are going up. And there's also the anticipation of an economic slowdown, which means more insurance claims come through at that time. People have less expendable cash, similar to what we talked about last time.
Yeah.
When there's less cash in the market, people have to go through insurance. Long story short, the insurance forecast for this, and they're going to crank the rates up. But
it'd be like if all of a sudden there was a dramatic uptick in car accidents, like car insurance goes up. It's the same with this climate change, hurricanes, storms, look, places that never got snow, getting snow, places that never got high water surges, getting high water surges. It's going to get expensive.
Crazy world.
Neal's going to get back into the...
I'm going to switch everything. I'm going to go back to sucking water out of basements. I think we go straight into it with Rise.
Okay, cool.
Let's do it. We did pretty much a full news recap last time.
Yeah. Some people are laundering money in the States by doing cash deals. Who cares?
Okay.
Nova Scotia hit 1 million people. That's super cool.
That's premium content. That's not public content. For local news, Nova Scotia hits 1 million people, which is very exciting because they've been talking about that for a long time. And I think they were expecting to do it next year or the year after. And the numbers again, where we had like this absurd migration in the last 2 quarters, triple, quadruple what we were expecting. So it just bumped things up super fast.
Realize all the obstacles to coming here over the last 24 months, and we still managed to do that.
Yeah.
Like there was always this thought when people ask, like, "Oh, well, will the market like slow down after this little wave goes through?" I'm like, people can barely come here.
Yeah.
Wait till people are actually able to come here very easily. It's going to be even bigger, I think.
100%. Well, and you saw when I forget what the phases are called, but the second they allowed people from out of town to come, it went from like 2,000 people a month migrating to 8,000 people. Like literally the second they lifted the restriction, instantly 4x on the number of people coming in.
Yeah.
So, anyways, let's get into it.
Yeah.
So, again, Rise Renos, Scott and Kirsti, they started 2 years ago, and you guys have how many units now?
We have, we're building 1 Airbnb right now, and then we have 5 units.
Nice.
One of which we live in. Right?
Yeah.
But what did you do before that? Let's take us how you got into it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So we both graduated engineering in 2018, and Scott got right into work. He actually works like in construction. I can let him talk more about that. And I decided to take a year off and pursue my business. It's kind of my side business, running ringette camps. And then I bailed on engineering, and I work in sport now. So since then, after we graduated, like 4 months later, we bought our first house and used equity, or we renovated it like crazy. So we actually got it at the end of 2018 for only $190K.
Nice.
and then put about 50K into it, refinanced it at 355.
Yep.
So we ended up getting it at. So we used all that equity to buy our first rental property, and then just kept going from there.
So did you do purchase plus improvements with that first one, or you kind of funded everything out of pocket?
Funded it out
Funded
of
it,
pocket.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We just did a like your typical 5% down mortgage, and then with Kirsti's camps, we had the cash to finance the renos, and we did it all ourselves.
Was that by design, or did your real estate agents just not explain all your options to you?
Just for context, I'm their real estate agent.
It was by design. We did. Did we look at that?
Our original plan was to stay in that house for like 5 years
Yeah,
and just
right.
kind of pick
Chip
away
away
at
at
the
it, yeah.
renos. But then after talking to Neal more, we got an interest in real estate investing and kind of sped up the process. And then COVID hit, so we didn't really have any time to like, I coach a lot, he refs a lot. We didn't have much spare time,
I was
our
also
spare
working
time
remote.
freed up.
Did you ref hockey?
Yeah.
Or what do you?
Yeah.
Well, I used to ref basketball for a long time.
Oh, cool.
It's a good side hustle.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeps you active.
Yeah. And like
the sport.
random. Oh no, now you're gonna put the like. People don't like claim.
Yeah.
Like see, I don't know.
Yeah.
CRA doesn't care if you're a ref. It's weird.
What's that?
CRA that doesn't like come for the refs.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're going down this path.
No, it's just like super interesting because if they did, there'd be no refs. But and there's a shortage of hockey refs and there's a shortage of basketball refs right now. And all
Yeah.
that,
The
'cause,
abuse I take, I'm okay not claiming.
man, it's a grind too, right? You
Yeah.
travel around, but no, that's. So were you guys handy? Like, because not everyone assumes like, oh, you're an engineer, you must be super handy, but not every engineer is.
Most
He was.
aren't actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
So I grew up doing renovations around the house with my dad.
Okay.
So I owe him credit for that. All the times I resented having
Shout
to
out
do
Peter.
renovations, it's paid off. Yeah. So I've done pretty much. Well, Lucy and we did literally everything. Like I did
Like
under
drywall.
slab plumbing. I did
Yeah.
myself.
Oh, really? Oh, sweet.
drywall. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
electrical.
Yeah, so and to give some context, so the first place was a bungalow that was an older, it wasn't necessarily an older couple coming out, but it was basically older
Yeah.
style,
Just out of date.
exactly, out of
Very
date,
dated.
unfinished basement.
Unfinished basement.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so you guys came in and you did, like you're saying,
Yeah, kitchen. Actually, some of the they did the flooring throughout. So the upstairs, really all we touched was the kitchen living.
And bathroom.
We knocked out a wall. Oh yeah, you're right. Bathroom, kitchen, living, bathroom, and then in the basement we added a bedroom.
New
bathroom,
windows, though, like,
new windows.
Painted
Spruced up the outside.
exterior.
full bathroom in the basement as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you did, yeah, exactly. You did some exterior work, some landscaping.
Yeah.
But overall, it made it a clean space, basically doubled the actual square footage, which
Yep.
is important for your appraisal.
Yep.
Right? Because if you're going from whatever was 1,000 square feet to 1900, that makes a huge impact.
yeah.
So that's Lucian over in Woodlawn?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to drive people nuts to hear that in 2018 that was 190,000.
Yeah,
know.
100.
Because without
Yeah.
exact like unrenovated right now, that's
High threes.
40, 50. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say even mid threes, but yeah,
Yeah.
like almost double what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's still a lift because you're seeing the ones that are fully renoed now
Oh,
also
man.
going
Yeah.
closer to 500.
Which is banana lands. but
Yeah, yeah, that is.
Are you guys still in that location?
No.
No.
Okay.
We just recently moved.
What was the plan when you were doing that? Because you thought you were going to be there long term. Was the plan to do the quote unquote Burr model where you were going to fix it up and refinance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Not
that's
when we first bought it, though. Like, when we first bought it, it was like our first home, like, a couple moving in,
excited.
just
Yeah, yeah.
renovating.
Yeah, we-
and then it took a year.
Yeah, we really didn't have plans when we bought the
No.
house to do this, and then it was actually Neal, and it just kind of went from there. You sat me down one day, explained the burn method without calling it that, and then Kirsti got on board, and then we just kind of rolled with it from there.
It's hardcore pressure sales. I actually had the property already
Neil's like,
picked
how
out,
can I turn this one deal into three?
and then I already had the property picked out for them. They just had to sign the paperwork. I brought them in, sold the dream.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think one question that we want to ask is like putting together your first down payment. I know that's one that we get a lot. I think you guys also need to talk a little bit about what you do for work. I know you kind of mentioned it, but you guys hustle. Like I gotta give you mad respect. Like you
Thank you.
guys have multiple jobs, you have a business, like all these things. So a lot of people are like, oh, where you going with the first down payment? And we've kind of alluded to it that you kind of need to hustle and you kind of need to have side gigs.
Yeah.
And so you guys have gone down that path and doing that. So I don't know if you want to kind of explain where you came together with
Yeah.
getting the money and
So-
putting it together.
So when we graduated, Kirsti had her ringette camps, and that was basically a cash business. So it was a big lump sum of cash in the summer that she was sitting on. And then when I graduated, I had a job. So I brought the steady income for the mortgage, and she brought the down payment. And
Right
that's basically
Yeah.
it. But all throughout,
Yeah.
you continued with your
Like-
camps, and I refed, and
And more to that too, like throughout school, like because we bought our first house 4 months out of university, and
Yeah.
an engineering degree isn't cheap.
Yeah.
And but we like you were in co-op
Oh yeah,
throughout
co-ops. Yeah.
your past like your last 3 years of school. I was in co-op, and then I started my business when I was 20. So like I had that money to pay for my tuition, make sure I had no debt when I came out of school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that summer is where I had my camps and had the cash to put it down for a down payment.
Exactly. Did you guys? I mean, you don't have to answer this, but you went through CMHC to buy.
Yeah.
Right. So that helped to also keep the down payment from
Yeah,
being
5%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which
Just like $9,700.
Yeah, like
exactly.
payment,
Which
is-
makes it very reasonable
Yeah.
to get in.
compared to now.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
it's almost a mandatory now for most people to get in, which makes sense because again, like you said, your bottom price point now is $350, $400 to get in.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more intense. So you guys did that, and then moving to the second one, bit of an interesting one, if I remember.
Woodlawn?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you guys they bought their second one. It was another same style property, right?
Yeah, and honestly, the down payment for that, I actually kind of forget how it all happened. We didn't put a down payment down for that. We went through.
We got a private lender.
We had a private lender, Gracebrook.
Oh.
Went through.
Wow, Neil
broker.
really did sell you.
And we ended up we had to put some money down. I actually remember this. It was Natal Day weekend, right?
It was a
we were
long
down
weekend
at my
in
cottage
August, so
in
it
Cape
was kind
Breton,
of stressful. Yeah.
and it was like you need to come up with this, and we were like, no, no, we don't. we don't have it. So I honestly forget kind of how it all panned out, but we had to put basically a deposit down, and then the lender covered everything, and we just did draws. We paid for it on the monthly percentage, but
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
So with that one there, because you did the first one almost accidentally, in that you went in there, had planned to fix it up, but maybe didn't have the big picture of we're going to fix it up, we're going to refinance, we're going to take that equity and buy another property. The second one, obviously, you were going there with this designed intention. First, timeline wise, how long after the first purchase did you do the second one, and was your first one done yet when you made that purchase? Obviously, if it wasn't refinanced because you didn't have the down payment for the second one. Walk me through that timeline.
So we bought our first house November 2018. We moved in. And then we bought the second one March 2020. So like we started looking at properties in
Okay.
like January 2020. And then COVID hit. And I think we signed the deal like, I don't know, like right when COVID hit. So
Yeah,
we
like
couldn't close. Like we got possession, I think, August 2020.
Yeah, it was a long close.
Super long
Oh,
closing.
wow.
Because we
Yeah.
delayed, like it was an older woman. She
Requested by
wanted to
seller.
wait to
Yeah.
move
Oh,
out.
nice. That place just went up
Yeah.
those 7 months right there. They went through the
Yeah.
roof.
Which was a
So-
huge risk, though. Like when this was like she said, it was right when COVID hit, and everyone was like,
Yeah.
"Question mark? Is this going up
Up
or
or
down?"
Totally.
Yeah.
And they rolled the dice, and I respect them for it, and it worked out really well.
Yeah.
Because by the time we closed, there was no chance you'd get that house again for that money.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was a huge
Yeah.
question mark.
Was
And
your
it
first
did
one
give us-
done? But-
So yeah, it gave us more time to finish our
Right,
so
first
no, it
one.
wasn't.
So we didn't start the basement until I think April 2020. And the
Okay.
good thing about, I don't want to say COVID was a good thing, but we didn't have our, extracurriculars to take up our time in the evenings. So we would get off working from home, and then we would just grind for like 6 hours and finish the basement. So we ended up finishing it in July and then refinanced it. And the problem was, so with that whole finding money for the down payment, is we didn't get the refinance in time to put the down payment, so we used private money.
Yeah, as a bridge
Yeah.
loan, basically.
Yeah, yeah. We had a second mortgage on Lucy, and I remember when they needed photos for the appraisal. I was like, "Yeah, the basement's pretty much done," and there's like studs up, and I'm like, "Shit!" Like I'm gonna have to be very selective with my photos here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
So-
But it all
they
worked
went through the
out.
whole hustle of doing this. Like again, this is where I think people sometimes like they're like, "Oh, gosh, in the first year I want 6 places." Doesn't quite work like that.
no.
You
For all
guys
kinds of reasons.
For
The
all kinds of
capital,
reasons,
the
exactly.
financing,
time, like
yeah.
there's a
Yeah,
lot
you
of
just can't
things.
you can't physically manage that.
Yeah.
It'd be nuts.
Exactly.
trying to do that.
So specifically with the second one, it was another slightly dated bungalow. It sounds like. Is that
Yeah,
what you mean? Okay.
same style house. Yeah.
Same idea. And you went with an alternative lender, and you likely did. Okay, this is what it is now. This is what's going to be worth when it's done.
Yeah.
All right.
And
And so
that's complete.
all right, and then so you did draw. Like, draws is like you get release the money in increments to
Yeah.
at different phases of the construction.
Yeah.
So that when you knew going in, this is going to be an investment, and you were going to turn it into 2 units.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was
Gotcha.
a bungalow and an R2 lot.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I want to unpack that a little bit slower just because I know a few people have asked. So what Chandler alluded to there is when they purchased it, they had a appraisal done for what the value of it was going to be once they had finished the renovations and added the second unit, which allowed a lender to step in to not only give them the loan to purchase, but also give them a loan towards their renovation cost. And so this way, unlike the first one where they had to over a year come up with the cash to do the renos, they now had a draw system where they completed a certain amount of work with the property, and then the bank would release another, let's say, $10,000, which allowed them to keep going through it and at an expedited pace. Now, of course, there's an extra cost of doing so, and the lender that had to step in this case was a private, which again is similar to the scenario that I faced, where being young and these different things. A regular bank isn't super keen to lend a couple young new people that much money necessarily, especially when you already have a few balls in the air. So they had to do it, and it puts a bit of a time crunch on, but it also means you're under the gun to get it done.
Yeah.
So the pressure, it's bad in one sense, but probably on the other
Deadline's
end,
great, keeps you on track.
exactly.
How old are you guys? I'll accept a 5-year window.
I'm 27.
27?
26.
Okay, yeah, so quite young. Just for people listening out there and kind of thinking, because you would have been 23 starting this, right?
Yeah.
So it's cool to see what you've been able to do in a relatively short period of time. So when you do these conversions, actually, let me backtrack for a second. So most people go into engineering and they view it as a very stable profession, like there's good job opportunity and you know, it's very difficult, but it's kind of 9 to 5-ish. And now you're doing something that's maybe a bit more risk exposed. What did the people around you, what did your family think about this turn? I mean, you didn't even go into engineering ultimately, right? So they're like, oh my gosh, that degree. I mean, I did something very similar as a professional student, and then I got my real estate license, and I'm sure my mom just had a heart attack.
Same
Poor
here.
thing. Yeah.
I actually went to school with them, by the way,
Oh,
to make
no way.
a
Okay,
little
cool,
more
cool.
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were Scott and I are literally in the same class,
Yeah.
and we're in the same graduating year as well.
That's where I got my interest, actually, is because I was here working on these stupid, I don't even know, assignments, sure. And Neal's in the back, like making deals in Halifax. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, I need in on this.
Interesting. But what did your parents and the people around you think about you doing this?
So for our first house, like I remember your dad was actually the one that pushed us towards buying.
We were
in terms of like
actually-
our own residence.
Yeah, we were like about to sign a lease for an apartment, and my dad was like, well, "Why?" He's like, "Why don't you buy a house?" And I was like, "Well, I don't have a down payment."
Shout out to him.
Yeah,
We were also dating for like 8-9 months at that point
Yeah.
too. So I was like,
yeah. But anyway, yeah. So I
kidding.
She wasn't quite sold.
Here we are. No.
yeah. So yeah, he was like, "Yeah, why don't you just buy a house?" And I brought it up to Kirsti, and she was like, "Well, yeah, why not?"
And your family felt the same, like,
Yeah, I mean, I think they're pretty trusting. I made the decision pretty early on through my engineering degree that it wasn't for me, but I stuck with it to become an engineer. I think Neal can probably relate, and it does. It provides you with a good work ethic. And I started my own business while pursuing that degree, so I think my parents had some trust in me. We definitely had some friends that are like, "What the hell are you guys doing?" And like they don't get how we can like leverage and how we can use other
Right.
people's money to our advantage. So
'Cause
it's we've
that
been
first
able
one
to
was
convince some
super
people.
conventional, though, right? That super one
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
we're buying a little house in a nice area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some old lady lived in it, and now it's ours. We're going to make it nicer.
Yeah.
But doing the second one and, alternative lender, all this stuff,
Yeah.
that's a different level.
Yeah,
That is, yeah.
Your parents, I remember. So when the first investment property, the top floor was like okay, like you can definitely see potential, but the basement was a shit show. Like it was pretty disgusting. And when we took all we gutted it to the studs. I remember your parents. You should tell them about your parents.
So my parents are not. They're not risk adverse. Is that the right way of saying
They
that?
are risk
They
adverse.
are risk adverse. They're
Yeah.
not huge risk takers.
Yeah.
And they didn't say it to me at the time, but they told me after the fact when we walked them through, or when we were done. They told me they were like, "Yeah, we thought you guys were in over your head." Like they were a little bit skeptical because like it was
It was a big project.
It was a
Project.
big
It was
project, and
huge,
like yeah,
And we did it all ourselves for the most part.
And
so-
you're on a tight timeline.
tight
Yeah.
timeline.
Less than
And
6
they
months
didn't.
to get it done.
They I guess we told them how the lending worked, but like they didn't realize we were paying like 1% per month,
Yeah.
pure interest just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't tell them. Sometimes it's just best
Yeah.
not to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just stresses them out. Yeah.
So then you followed that again, and you've made another 2 property acquisitions.
Yep.
So I guess tell us about both of those. Maybe starting with the first with the rental, and then your guys' new project that you're building.
So the rental is actually what's it called? The assignment The assignment that
Yes.
your assignment. We're
Yes.
we're one of your assignments.
Wait, on what street?
So on Brock Street.
Man, you guys got a smoking deal. I told Neal at the time, I'm like, dude, you left so much money on the table in those.
He said I left too much on the
Swear,
table. But so to unpack that, what happened was there was a grouping of properties on a street, and the sellers didn't want to break them up and sell them separately. I was like, hey, I got buyers for each one of these, and me personally, I wasn't involved just due to the size. I was focusing at that point on a certain size of building. So what I ended up doing is I put the entire package under contract, and then I separated the buildings out, and then basically brought all the clients that I said would be interested in buying these and broke it out. And basically, I just put my commission on top of the price and then reassigned it to reassign it then at that point to new buyers. And so Scott and Kirsti picked up one of the duplexes.
And they were side by side units too, right?
Yeah.
So
Purpose built.
Oh, the side by side, yeah, purpose built duplexes. You're not going through permitting to add a second unit. You're not doing the over under where you worry about the basement sometimes. Side by side unit, and they get great rent. And that area was going like this at the time, kind of the Southdale area. And I mean, the last one of those that I saw, there was one up around 500, I think, like that. And it
probably wasn't a
anything
brand
like-
new reno.
No, it wasn't. It was kind of like, oh, okay. Like,
Our appraisal came back real good.
yeah.
Yeah, so if you guys are comfortable, you want to throw down some numbers on
Yeah,
it.
Yeah, can we?
Go
Okay,
ahead.
so we paid
Yeah.
$310 for it,
Yeah.
and it reappraised for $655.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what kind of
Yeah.
reno cost were you guys in for?
We're honestly, I haven't tallied it in a while, but
We'll be
we're
over 100.
Yeah.
I was gonna say we're around 100. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say under, but we're
I
around
think we'll be
100 grand.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're doing like pretty high end finishes, and we have like a contractor there like every day, basically. Or
Yeah, we owner
contractor.
occupied this one,
Yeah.
so we're making it a little.
No way.
higher
Do you
end.
guys still live there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I live
Yeah.
on Blink Bonnie, which is kind of the other end of Southdale, kind of near Old Ferry Road. Right, you're on the other side of Prince
Okay,
Arthur.
yeah.
I'm on
Okay,
the
yeah.
downtown side.
You're-
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
First
love
place-
that area.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
I never realized how central it is, but like you're 30 seconds from the Cirque,
Yeah.
you're 2 minutes from downtown,
Yeah.
like it's
You
perfect.
get anywhere in less
Yeah.
than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that's like I accidentally moved to that area because I couldn't afford anywhere else. And same deal. Like I bought a set of side by sides there, and just fell in love with the area. I'm like, man, this area is so good. And then it just took off like crazy. Yeah.
So going back to that 2 unit, so this is something I want to say. Again, you guys now have done a couple, but you're still doing like a live-in rental. Like you're not
Yeah.
messing about. You guys literally moved in, which you had to do. Again, this is where people are like, well, how do I get the tenants out? You guys went through the form. Here you can do, if you're moving in, you can give a tenant notice.
Form DR2.
A Form DR2, which is called locally, which we'll go over that in a second, how much fun you guys had there.
Another fun story.
And you guys genuinely moved in
Yeah.
and then renovated the units. And you guys are literally living in these construction sites. Like this is again where I'm like, this
Do
is not
recommend.
glamorous. Like
Do not recommend. This has been the toughest 4 months,
Yeah.
I would say,
Yeah.
in a while.
Of our relationship. like you can say
We're doing
it.
great,
It's
but
like, oh, like it, but it's like
been very difficult. Every
Yeah.
time you go to do something, you're moving. Shit is in the way constantly.
Yeah.
Because like we had to unpack our house, Lucian, jam it all in here. Thankfully, we had a friend that lent us a 30-foot trailer.
Yeah.
And then when he needed it, it was okay. Like, well, we'll put it in the basement, and now we can't do anything in the basement because all our stuff's there. We're just playing musical
Shares
shit.
with
So at this point, you had bought the first bungalow, added a basement unit. Then you had bought a second bungalow, added a basement unit, and now you'd bought a as-built 2 unit and had moved into one side of the 2 units. So you had 6 units at this point in time. Obviously,
5.
the first house they didn't do a basement apartment.
oh, we didn't. Oh, okay.
Just refin.
It's
We just
not-
Single family home.
The
Yeah.
zoning,
Yeah.
just not yet.
Sorry.
We
right,
can't.
right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is the plan, though. Eventually, we want to make that
Yeah.
In-law
over
suites.
under.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that we with the new center plan, like that area will be called ER1, which allows 2 units as a right. So you can do a secondary suite there, which is actually a lot easier than doing a second unit.
Yes.
They call a secondary suite's not the same as a legal duplex. It's very odd and nuanced, but it's actually quite a bit easier. Okay, so you'd gotten to that point, and you're now a landlord, right? When you started the first one, you weren't a landlord, and then you got 2 people, and then when you moved to this one, you now have 4 tenants.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because you can enjoy the process of the work, you can take the risk and get the money, but then you get in the people business.
Yeah. I mean, we have a pretty tough screening process, so that's been helpful in terms of like, all of our tenants pay on time, in full, consistently, knock on wood. And it's been really great up until the point of this whole flooding situation.
What's the screening process before we get into the flood?
Sure. So we post on Facebook Marketplace, and I used to do Kijiji, but lately Facebook's all you really need.
Yeah.
And we have an online application, so they read the description, they go through our Google form and fill out the application, but we have a few like preliminary questions, so if they answer incorrectly, I guess I'll say, to any of the questions, then they get booted out, and then if not, they continue. From there, we look at their rent-to-income ratio. If it meets our criteria, which we usually say like 30 to 40%, then we'll invite them for a walkthrough, we'll meet them, and then if we like them, we'll do a neighborly report. And do you want me to explain neighborly? Or?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like an online, it's basically like credit check, background check, employment check. Like it verifies like all your income. And if
And
you
you
have, like, a
saying
record.
neighborly, like that's your colloquial term, or
It's-
that's a third party service?
It's a service, yeah.
No free ads, but Neighborly's the bomb.
Yeah.
Leave it out.
So it's like
Yeah.
$25 per application. And from there, they basically give you a score. We don't really pay too much attention to the score. We look more at like, whether they've claimed bankruptcy in the past and what their income, verify their income. And then from there, we send over a lease. So
Do you find that because your process is so strict that some people just self-screen?
yeah,
Yeah,
like some
they
people.
don't like. I'm not going to get this place, and
Yeah.
they just don't bother applying.
And
'cause
that's fine
they know
by
themselves.
us.
Yeah, totally.
Because
Makes
like
it easier.
our tenants are awesome so far. So yeah.
And I think that's important. That's something I say to a lot of people, especially when they're starting. You need to be like on the ball and show that you have no kind of open holes or loopholes or anything like that. Because if you show like kind of that you're confused or weakness or anything like that, a poor quality tenant might see that as an opportunity to try and take advantage of you. Versus like what you guys have done was making sure you had everything in order. You alluded to it kind of quickly, but you have a Google form that you guys created. So that's something I think are you sharing it online?
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
on our Instagram. Like we're open to sharing anything like that.
That's
Yeah.
super cool. I'm going to check that out
And-
myself
yeah.
because I hate people. You send over someone an application like, so I don't have a printer and I don't do this. I'm like, I don't know, figure it out somehow. They're like,
Yeah.
Yeah. So she
Wow.
built a really
Like-
slick one that you can just input all your details, and then they have it all for them. It all shows up nicely in a spreadsheet for you, right?
Yeah.
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 That was smart. That was really good. Especially today, where you get a lot of applicants,
Oh my gosh.
it can expedite that versus
It's
like
like-
having scans and pictures and.
Yeah,
Right, right.
I'm so grateful we had this time around because before the flood, we were trying to get new tenants to replace because they were moving out at the end of December.
Yeah.
And we've received well over 200 messages at this point for that unit. And then over 50 people actually filled out the application.
Jeepers.
Yeah.
So, which unit is that now? Is
That's
that the one
the one
beside
that-
where you are now?
So
or
the
the one that's
second
flooded?
place we bought, so Woodlawn, the basement
Basement
unit.
of it.
And that's the one that flooded. So luckily we didn't sign a lease yet for anyone. So it's all, shouldn't say it's all good, but it's best case scenario for a flood.
Is that just up for lease because you just finished it, or someone moved
No,
out? then
they're
it-
moving out.
Oh,
Yeah, they're
right,
moving
right,
out in
right,
2
right.
weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now
We gotta talk
single
about this
family
flood.
home. What's that?
We got to talk about this.
I
flood.
know we're
Sorry, I
we're
know I keep
teasing
saying
this
it,
flood.
yeah.
We'll go over the last property and then we're going back to this
All
flood.
right, so one single family home being rented, a 2-unit being rented. Lower people gave their notice or what have you, so it was coming up available for rent. That basement flooded. We'll talk about that in a second. And then you have the other 2-unit where you're living in one, renovating. Is the other side done, completed, and rented?
Yeah.
Yep.
And we're renting it to families. So just to go back to like the whole DR2 notice, like we are doing it to the book. Like we're moving into one side and families renting from us on the other.
Okay, right on. Cool. And is there another property either under contract in the works?
Scott's
Yeah.
baby, he can talk.
Oh, the build.
Yes.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Okay.
we, while renovating the Woodlawn, the basement, we picked up a little piece of property in Woodlawn in Wentworth, and we're building an
I saw
Airbnb.
that. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a little 1,000 square foot cottage
Bungalow.
home, 2-bedroom bungalow.
Like
Super
you're
modern.
design building it yourself, or
Design building
cool.
myself. We have a contractor that's actually executing the work, but I'm basically PMing it, and I designed it all and did the drawings and applied for the permit, which was a piece of paper for Cumberland County. God bless them.
Oh,
How quickly they turn it over.
$80, like 5 days,
Oh,
and
the dream.
handwritten. Like
The
it was,
dream.
yeah.
my
And
God.
also like the cost of land was, what was it, 12?
We only paid 12 grand for it,
2
yeah.
minutes from the ski hill. Like it's just
Right.
crazy.
And then you had to put well and septic there, or
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
And what's the timeline on that?
Should be, end of February.
In February.
Yeah.
So you might get some.
We'll get the tail end of skiing, and then
March break.
they've done a bunch of March break, and they've done a bunch of mountain bike trails up there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's going to be year round
catch them on Airbnb soon, and we'll get them back and give us a little review on how it went. But I think it'll do really well. You're doing a super cool style, great location, and there's a demand for it, like a crazy large demand, especially up there. There's not a lot of options. Not even on the new front, especially. I find most of them are older homes. There hasn't been a lot of new stuff that's gone up there, so I'm sure that'll pick up well.
There is, I think people are starting to catch on, and there's a little kind of subdivision that's being developed off of the one of the main roads. So I think it will start to pick up, but we got in on the forefront.
They've been smart to kind of get in there ahead of time. I find a lot of people talk about doing it. They don't hesitate. When you guys are going to make the move, you make the move, which is, I think, important.
Yeah.
And again, they've all panned out well. Of course, there's times when they don't, but you guys have been fortunate that they've all gone fairly well. I do want to talk about the DR2 real quick because, again, this is something where I think people ask, like, well, how did they get it empty? And you're saying a DR2. Again, not all roses. You guys face some issues doing that, even though you followed the protocol. We did have some issues with some sellers and stuff signing documents and providing them. So I don't know if you guys want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Can I chime in with the rules first? Just for
Yeah.
people who don't know the
Explain
rules.
the DR2 for us.
So Nova Scotia tenancy, there's only a few ways that you can get a vacant unit. Obviously, if someone's not paying the rent, if they're damaging the rent, if you think there's a health concern, or if the building becomes unfit for living, and all these sort of things. But then there's one that is the Form DR2, which is an owner's notice to occupy. When an owner or a would-be potential future owner, a purchaser, is going to owner occupy the space themselves or a member of their immediate family. And I actually looked this up the other day. It's not cousins. It's not like it's kind of close family.
Yeah.
If you or they are occupying, then that is another grounds to terminate the tenancy with 2 full calendar months notice. So not 60 days, but actually wait till the next calendar month and 2 full months. So you as the purchaser or the owner about to move in, you have to fill out an affidavit with a lawyer that says, yes, I swear that we are moving in there. That is served with the Form DR2 to the tenant. So oftentimes as part of the transaction, the existing owner of the property, the seller, will serve the tenant that affidavit and that notice, and it sometimes goes great.
On behalf of the new buyer, yeah.
Yeah, but sounds like it didn't go great in this particular case.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it ended up working out, but what happened was, so April 1, we served them with the DR2, and we thought it went okay. Like, we did it face-to-face to be respectful and to explain our situation. And a few weeks later, the right side seemed all good with it. They stopped paying rent. The left side, is that okay that I'm saying that? Both sides?
There's no names,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know the address.
Left side started fighting us on it. So they basically said they wouldn't move out, blah, blah, blah. So we went to the tenancy board because we're not in the wrong here. So we went to the tenancy board and basically we negotiated for them to stay 1 extra month. They didn't end up paying rent for that 1 extra month. And then when they left the unit, they left all their garbage inside and put the heat up all the way. So
Did
that
they
it
damage it a
was
bit too?
Yeah.
Oh,
there was
right.
There's
Yes, they
somebody put a foot
damaged.
through a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, well, actually, it's not fine because we weren't going to replace that piece of drywall, but
Yeah.
It's a reno, but but still, again, it's not all roses. Like, this is
No.
to be expected. And to be honest, when we talked about it before you guys ever even closed on the property, like, we talked about the fact that there's a chance that could happen, right? Like,
we
Yeah.
built into our plan that we were not anticipating any rents. So
Yeah.
any that we did get was just kind of like thumbs up, great.
Yeah,
But
because sometimes when you give someone notice, that's the first thing they do is they're like, well, I'm not paying.
Yeah.
I'm not
And
gonna
we
pay my rent the
expected
rest of
it.
the time.
Yeah.
But
So with that one, were you putting 20% down at that point?
no.
Yeah, because you had you're an owner-occupied.
Owner
So,
occupied,
yeah. Gotcha.
again, this is what we talked about last time when you asked me about my term on my financing. I'm slowly doing longer and longer terms, and it's not necessarily a lack of confidence in my ability to renovate. It more becomes the unknowns of potentially having tenant issues or things like that. Because like an extra month delay doesn't seem like much, but
It's a pain in the butt because
Yeah, you can't start.
can't start. Yeah.
Can't book trades. If you
we-
did book them, they're going to be.
We
ticked.
had people pegged to move into the half that we were currently living in.
Mm-hmm.
That puts us a month behind us because like we moved into it, we renovated, moved into it, started renovating the other side, and then had to swap sides, and because we had this one leased, and that month delay means we had to move into a unit that was basically like we didn't have a
Unfinished.
sink.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like we were back to worse off than we were when we bought our first house.
Yeah, going back to my parents every couple of weeks to do laundry. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to do that too. And like our new home that we were working on wasn't ready, but we had already rented out our current home. So we had to move in with the in-laws. And I just remember one day, like I woke up and I just looked over and my mother-in-law was folding my underwear. And I'm like, I got to get out of here. And I like went over to the house and I was like putting down trim as fast as I could. I'm like, I got to get out of here. But yeah, like you make these sacrifices early on. And you probably had going through this. Like I imagine you have friends who are out there buying their homes. And I know personally it was always tough because they would go out to the suburbs and they'd buy this big house with the garage and, the picket fence. And meanwhile, I'm making all these sacrifices and living with tenants and all of that. Did you guys feel that at all, or did you at least see it? And I mean, obviously it didn't affect what you were doing.
Yeah, I think we definitely feel it sometimes, but we have our own goals and we see the bigger picture. Like eventually we want to start building homes. So
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we see our dream home. So we see others' dreams homes right now, but we know what ours is going to be in the future. So that keeps us going.
Yeah,
cool.
There's a huge objective there, and I think you guys have. I mean, now you're seeing the kind of the fruits of your labor.
Yeah.
Where you're building all this equity, you're starting to build the cash flow. You're going to have the beautiful property when it's brand new, and you're in a position now, again, very soon to be able to make another move, potentially in a much bigger scale. Instead of a 2-unit, it might be a 4 or a 6 at this point.
Yep.
With what you've done.
How are you financing the build? Like,
Through a build mortgage,
conventional
Atlantic,
construction draw?
Yeah,
Same
construction
thing.
draw. Yeah,
As complete was done.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're going through that same
exactly.
structure.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool.
Do you want to say what the as complete was? Sorry,
Sure.
I'm just like so excited about it.
Speak numbers. The
Yeah.
as complete was 403,
Okay.
and my budget to build is probably around 250.
Right.
So,
So-
there's some room in
Just
there
to
again.
refi
Yeah.
that 80-20,
Yeah.
at least covers you. You put a new
Yeah.
conventional product on it, have a little bit extra to maybe do something else.
Yeah.
Then you've got 4 properties at that point with 6 doors. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
And then you maybe look at refinancing them all to do something bigger. Is that kind of the thought? Or
I would think so. Yeah.
I think
'cause-
when you got your appraisals done, your numbers are now
Well, the number for
Jokes.
Brock Street is awesome, but the other two are
soft.
Like Woodlawn came in way lower than we wanted it to.
really?
Yeah.
There was
Like,
no comparables at the time.
That was the problem. Yeah, there was no duplexes in Woodlawn to compare to like a newly renovated. But I think the refinance came at $375.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we
exactly.
bought it for $265. So we didn't make much money off that one, or like equity. But luckily, we had so much equity in Lucian to cover that.
Yeah.
Well, I would say to be like some are going to be home runs, some are going to be doubles,
Yeah.
some are going to be singles, like, and some of them that you think is a single turn out to be a triple 2 years later. Like you never quite know, but
Yeah.
if you're making smart buys in the moment, you just trust the process.
And we talked about that too before you guys bought. Remember, we said there's a potential here that you're not going to be able to pull some equity from this property, but you'll end up with a brand new rental basically with a little bit of equity in it. Instead of making a 20% down payment on a $400,000 rental,
Yeah.
you'll be into it for like 2 or 3% effectively, and you'll have most of your cash back, and you'll be able to kind of look again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you guys were able to keep moving, and now the bonus is some of your neighboring properties have gone for over 5, I believe.
520.
520,
down the road.
and they're not even quite as nice, to be
Yeah.
honest. So yeah, there's an opportunity there. I
Yeah.
see Tanner fist bumping in the back because he also lives in the neighborhood and also has a bungalow with a basement. So
Yeah.
and he also did not pay 5. So
Yeah.
I always tell people like when you get that juicy comp in your neighborhood, that's the time to go and get that appraisal, right? If you can wait for that moment,
Yeah.
grab it at that time. We got to talk about this flood in a second, but in addition to all these other things, you started to take a more active presence on social media. When did that start? And why are you doing this? Is it to be helpful? Are you trying to monetize it? Is it like Neal and I, where it's just pure vanity?
Yeah.
Like what's the angle?
I want
there?
free stuff.
I would say no. It's
Not a bad answer.
it's a mixture of like everything you just said. I'd say. So we started really getting active at the beginning. It was just to like show our family and friends that we were
Right.
renovating a house, and this was our life now. And then once we started investing, we got more active, and we started like I say friends, but like Instagram friends from like Seattle, Washington that we talk pretty regularly, and there's people all across North America that we're able to connect with and learn from. So that's been huge. Like just having partnerships or to be able to talk with real estate investors, because
Yeah.
really around here, like we know Neal and a couple of our other friends invest, but it's kind of it. There's not really this big network like
Yeah.
there is through other means in North America. So Instagram's been huge for that. And then we've got a couple like partners through that. Like we partner with like a painting company, and we're hoping to do some more things like that. And maybe even have some deals come out of it as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say you guys have been very, I'd say, helpful too to the average like person who's looking from the outside. Like you guys have
Yeah.
done like tool reviews, all sorts of different things about installing stuff, DIY projects. They've done a really good job. I gotta say kudos to you guys. You've done a great job in offering people something that actually of value, not just being
Yeah.
like, check out my sick duplexes.
Yeah.
You've been actually going over and like, here's how you put tile up. Here's some recommendations on tools, and I'm sure there's been lots of other stuff I can't think of right now. But
Yeah.
We also try to show
construction
the non-glamorous side of it. Like
Yeah.
we documented pretty heavily the issues we had with the tenants and the flood. We documented that pretty well.
Yeah.
And it just kind of shows
it real.
people. Makes it real.
Yeah, that's where I saw that you guys were having this flood issue. I mean, I was getting incoming calls from a bunch of people too, and then it popped up on my story feed. You guys were having this flood. So we know at this point the tenant wasn't going to renew anyway, I think, right? They were.
Yeah.
And then you hadn't rented it to
You hadn't-
someone
yeah,
else,
signed somebody
thankfully.
else. Yeah.
So what happened? It flooded. Explain.
So I'm refereeing a junior game in Musquodoboit, and thankfully in the intermission I get a call, and it's the tenant, and I don't pick it up because I'm in the room, but I check my text, and she's like, "Yeah, we have water coming in. There's like an inch of water. It's real bad." And I was like, "Uh-oh." I was like, "Well, I'm in Musquodoboit reffing. Nothing I can do. Like, well, I'll see if I can send somebody." So I sent. I didn't call Kirsti because I knew she was away with Ringette. So I texted our contractor Duncan. He zipped over, and then I played catch up, I guess.
Yeah.
Then you ended up
So
showing up.
you got the call at what, 8:50 at night?
Yeah, around then.
And then I got
It
home
always
around
comes in. Doesn't come in early.
What was it? A weekend? It was like Saturday.
Saturday
night,
night.
yeah.
Saturday at 8:50.
Yeah. I got home at
Glamorous.
8:45, and I was getting ready to go hang out with my cousins. And then I get a text from Duncan at like 9 to be like, "Hey, can I call you?" And I was like, "Oh shit, like something's up."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Has Scott talked to you?" I was like, "No." And he's like, "There's some water in the apartment." I'm like, "Oh, okay, should I come over?" He's like, "Probably." So I like grabbed some towels thinking that I was like, I just figured like the sump pump,
Yeah.
like ran like the batteries didn't pick
Right.
up or something. And so then I came with some towels, and Duncan's like, "Do you want some rubber boots?" I'm like, "I have my sneakers, like whatever, I'm fine." He's like, "You're gonna want these." And I get downstairs, and there's like at least 6 inches of water, and I'm like, what the hell's happening? So put the rain boots on. We couldn't figure it out. Luckily, Duncan went and got another pump. My dad came with another pump, so we had 3 pumps going.
Yeah.
And we left that overnight and got rid of it.
Yeah.
And I called Rainbow, and they
Boys-
did their.
The boys got over, but we were a little
Yeah.
late to it. But
So what did the tenant situation look like?
Yeah, so they immediately started bringing everything off the ground, and then we put them up in a hotel for a couple nights, and then the restoration company came in, so we got them an Airbnb for another week, and we asked them to look into their insurance because I think technically they can claim all of those accommodations themselves.
Under their tenant insurance policy, which is why when you fill out a standard form lease, tick the little button that says the tenant is responsible for
Yes.
tenant insurance.
And I think the biggest problem is though they aren't able to front that money right away.
Right.
So
Yeah,
we
that's
were
very
being
fair.
a good
Yep.
guy and hoping that
They
the
were
karma will
very
come our way.
understanding.
They were
throughout the whole
very,
thing,
very
so we
understanding.
had no issue doing it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
it sucks, but they understood. Like, there's nothing that
anyone can do.
Yeah,
nothing
you
anyone
didn't do
can
it.
do.
Yeah.
Like, it is
Yeah.
what it is. So
Yeah, like this was a very unique storm, and maybe
Yeah.
these storms are going to become less and less unique because of the way the climate is changing. But that wasn't a place that you'd previously experienced any issue with.
And
it's
you had the
rained
systems
before.
in place.
yeah,
Yeah, and you did
Yeah.
everything right. You put the interior
Yeah.
weeping system.
Yeah.
All these things. So sometimes that just happens. It's why maintaining a good relationship with your tenant and really doing a good job of screening your tenant can certainly help. But now, where the insurance company, your insurance company's engaged on the repair, and then there's the question of those costs for putting those tenants up for a little while. So, do you know where that stands with the insurance companies?
So first of all, we called Halifax Water Saturday night.
They don't cover it.
Oh, I know. But like right away he picked up and I was like, "Yeah, we have major flooding, blah, blah, blah." And he was like, "Everyone does. You're on hold." I was like, "Okay." And then he picked up again and he was like,
Guy's a savage.
we'll get back to you soon. I was like, "Well, like when? Like tonight? Like tomorrow? Like I just need to know like what the deal is here." Because I didn't know if it was a Halifax Water problem or if it was us. And he was like, "We'll get back to you eventually. We'll call you." It's what day is it? Thursday. Still haven't heard back. So
We're not going to hear back.
so we called TD.
They have zero liability. It's in their contract that they have no liability whatsoever for city main backups.
Insanity.
So we called TD our insurance,
Yep.
and you talk to them. So
Yeah, so I mean they're gonna TD. We hired Rainbow, but TD sends in their own
Adjuster.
They did a evaluation of the damage, and I just spoke with the adjuster today, and basically, I mean we have good coverage for this problem, and they will cover it. But whether or not we decide to have a restoration company do it, or we'll take the cash and do it ourselves, it's an option. So
Yeah.
we'll realistically do the latter.
Yeah. It makes the most sense to do that. If you have the ability to do some of the work yourself, and where you guys just redid the basement and you know what's there, I'd say it's worth doing. Now, when you're in a house and you don't know what's behind the walls, and it's an older home, that's when I caution people in taking the cash out,
Yeah.
because you might start the work and find out that there's way more damage than you anticipated,
Yeah.
and then you're in a tough spot, especially if you're hiring third-party companies to do it. Again, where you guys have the experience, you do have the contacts, and you literally just rebuilt that basement from studs up, like you
Yeah.
said, a year ago.
Yeah, less like almost a year exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys know where it is. It makes the most sense for you guys to do the cash out, and that's completely allowed. And the insurance company is happy to cut you the check because they know that there's a good chance of overruns when they take on the work. So even though they're quoting you at whatever, they understand that there's a risk that they're taking on, and also mitigates the risk for the insurance company. So they're happy that if you do it, then it's in your hands.
Yeah.
But again, if you are in the business, there's usually a good opportunity there to save some money and potentially put it towards something else.
Yeah.
And likely you're in terms of the other costs of putting the tenant up there. So do you have an end date for that? Like, is there a date that their lease is finished, or that they'll be able to move back in?
yeah, so their lease does end like December 31st, but they actually have a new place already that they were hoping to move into tomorrow. Actually,
Okay, wow, that's really fortuitous.
yeah, we're pretty lucky. But because of everything that happened, they do need a few extra days because they had to unpack, repack, deal with all this damage
Dry some stuff out.
dry some
Yeah.
stuff, buy some new stuff.
Yeah.
So they're hoping to move in Monday or Tuesday. So really, it's only
Okay.
a few more nights.
Yeah.
We're hoping they'll be able to, go through their insurance for
Yeah.
the last few nights. But if not, we'll do it and we'll.
Well,
figure
your
it out.
insurance company is going to have a conversation with their insurance company.
Yeah.
And I guess you probably don't know how that's going to go.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to bring it up, and yeah, we're going to say, look, we're owed for this much. They're supposed to cover it, and we'll challenge them on it. But it's not going to come out of it's going to be a battle of the insurance companies. They can fight over it.
Yeah.
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 I think this is an important thing to kind of think about too, is making sure that you have your insurance, everything perfectly lined up.
Especially for those basement apartments.
Especially for those basement apartments. But proof again, you guys did a full reno. You did everything you needed to do to mitigate it. So you wouldn't expect to have a flood, and then you have it. But again, you never think to update your insurance. You get the insurance when you buy the house. You do renos, and you might change. You might finish a room in the basement that wasn't originally finished.
That's a good point.
Your first thing, you don't think of being all right, now I got to call my insurance and tell them that I added 25 or 100 square feet to my house and a finished
Right.
bedroom. And I'll tell you, insurance is very quick to be no coverage.
Yeah.
They're in that business, right? They're in the business to save
Yeah,
money.
they're not going to call you and check.
Yeah, they're not going to
So-
call you and check, and they don't want to pay for it. So if they find an out, they will. So I always recommend now to make sure that you keep your insurance updated, and especially on the rental front, just where occupancy might change, the amount of people in the property might change. It makes a big difference. And yeah, you're right, it might go up a little bit, but again,
You don't need it till you need it, and when you
Yeah.
need it, you need it.
Exactly.
But they wouldn't void the whole policy just because you finished it differently. They just wouldn't have money built into the policy. They say, well, we can't put it back as a 2-bedroom finished basement if
Yeah.
you only told us it was a half finished square footage.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. There's opportunities that they can get out. It's not as bad on the residential side, to be honest. When you get to commercial, they will very quickly just void all insurance. But in general, you just need to watch that. And also, there's some parts of the policy. It's always good to kind of review your policy and see what you're getting done. Because I'm saying this from a place of seeing a lot of people who've had it, and either they don't get coverage because they don't have overland flooding, or they didn't have exactly the right thing in there, and the insurance will do everything in their power to battle it. So just something to consider. And same with when you're hiring contractors, if you go with license as much as possible, because when you have an issue and they're going to ask you, it's renovated, who did the work? And if you say I have a cash guy off Kijiji or wherever it may be, they might give you some flack on that, or it might fall back on you.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so now you've got that project that's going on at the same time as you're trying to finish the new build in the Wentworth. You're doing the social media stuff a little bit, and while you're also doing your full-time jobs. How do you answer this question that we get asked all the time about balancing it all and squeezing it all in? Like, what's your little? You just do it.
Yeah,
These guys are nuts.
That is kudos to engineering for that, because it teaches you
Yeah.
just like you wake up, you're working until you go to sleep. Like that's been our
Time management.
grind for the last like 10 years. So
Well, you said this has been the hardest 4 months. Of
yeah.
your,
So add to what you just said. We're also still finishing the renovation at Brock Street where we're
Right.
living. We're
Yeah.
working on the basement, so like we've got a lot on the go while reffing, while coaching. It's a lot.
So you guys are at the pivotal tipping point, because I always tell people, like, if you want to get into rentals, you've got to bust through like 5 properties, because the first one's great. It's no big deal. Everything's easy. And then the second one is like, okay, too. And then getting the third, fourth, and fifth becomes very difficult from a money standpoint. But eventually, once you have 5, or 4 or whatever, at some point something's going to go wrong. And there's not yet enough money, cash flowing in, that the 4 good situations will easily offset the 1 bad situation. And this is where it gets tough. And this is where people either push through or they throw up their hands, because you guys have a lot of equity in these properties. You could just be like, you know what? We had a good run. We don't think this is for us. We'll cash out our, I don't know, $500,000 and just go in a different direction. And some people do that. Like we've all had investors that, 3 or 4 years in, they're like, you know what? Let's start parting with them.
Yeah.
And it's because they get to that point and they don't maybe power through that and scale up so that, when you have 20 tenants, if you've got 1 bad situation, the other 19 kind of covers it. And you get these economies of scale. So you guys are right at that little tipping point. Were there any times of like, this is just, we're not doing it. This is enough. Like we want to cap it at 5 and not do any more?
Not really. No.
Neil's like, phew.
It's honestly, it's all the
Gotta
more
sell
motivation.
more properties.
We definitely like shifted our goals though, and like what we want to do moving forward. Even over the summer, we thought finding a bungalow on an R2 was going to be kind of our niche. But now moving forward, we are more interested in like new builds, whether that be an Airbnb or like building a 100-unit apartment complex, especially because that's Scott's interest, and we eventually want to build homes.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah. That's
Are you guys looking in other areas? Because your first properties are all in the Dartmouth side, 2 kind of close to one another, but now you've gone to the Wentworth area. Like, where are you looking for the next stuff? Just
honestly, we haven't put much thought into it because we've been doing so much. But once things settle down a bit, we're gonna try and figure out where the next step is. We definitely, I don't know. Speaking for myself, it's been tough, and sure you have those moments where you're like, why the hell are we doing this? But it's just more motivation to like get more and not have to worry about it when it happens.
Yeah.
And part of a shift was no more old crap and renovating. Like we're just going to build new, and then we know what we're dealing with.
what is the solution to that water situation that you have? Are you going to discharge outside, you think?
I'm going to do some exterior,
Regrading.
I'm going to do some hardscape around the house and try and eliminate any runoff problems. And then I'm going to reroute the sump pump outside, and that should hopefully solve the problem.
Because this is the thing when you put one of those units in. Like I put one in, and knock on wood, it's never happened again. But you're always
I know. Then it
the
haunts
next
you in the back of your
rainstorm.
mind.
Yeah,
You
it's there, man. I still wake up every now and again. I'm like, something flooded.
every
Like,
time
oh
it
my
rains
God.
now, I'm going to be like worried.
I
Like, oh
know.
my God.
Even today, when I woke up to the snow, I was like, this is the start of it again. Because that's what happened last Thursday. We got 30 centimeters
Tonight
of snow.
it's raining. Yeah.
And then it melted. And then we got a shit ton of rain. And then,
Yeah.
This is the joys of being a landlord, man. Like landlords, you hate it. You come to hate it when it rains like this.
Yeah.
Like it just
Something's
it's in
going to
your
go
spine.
wrong.
You feel uncomfortable all day.
Yeah, it's not a happy situation for anyone. Tenant, landlord, bank account. It's not great.
Yeah.
Going back, I guess, to what you guys are saying about, so you want to look at getting some more Airbnbs, locations, building new. I think that's an interesting point to make, is starting to build new, because I think the market's transitioned where it's more difficult. Like we said, one of these bungalows, to pick it up at $350, whatever
The
it
numbers
is.
aren't there.
The rental cost, it might have been $50 when you guys started. It's probably closer to $70 now. You can be into it $420, and value being mid, maybe low 5s. there's not as much of a lift as you guys experienced.
And the
at
rents
start.
don't cover it as well.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right?
And the rents have gone up, but not quite as much as the
Not that
costing.
much, yeah.
And so now it's starting to make more sense to look at properties that have an opportunity to build more units, and potentially just buying a place, tearing it down, and building fresh, right?
And also, it works great for me because my 9 to 5 is working for a large developer, so I'm
Experiencing
exposed
it.
to that all day,
Yeah.
every day, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of second nature.
Yeah.
What-
Competitive advantage, man. We talk about this all the time.
Exactly.
That's your competitive advantage. You got to find out what it is and lean into it.
Yeah,
What's the end goal for you guys? I know you want to get into home building.
yeah.
Do we have a unit count that we want to hit? 10
We didn't
million units.
Should have talked about that.
I know.
No,
we
just-
don't. We don't.
I want enough.
Honestly, we've been so overwhelmed lately. It's been tough.
I want enough so that if a house burns down, I don't care. You know what I mean? As long as nobody dies.
Yeah.
If you know that. So to have something like this happen and not have to be stressed out about it.
Yeah.
That's the end goal, I guess.
And I know for me, like, once our Airbnb gets up and running and consistently, like, I want to take that on as like full-time property management and hopefully do that full-time. So
Running Airbnb so you can get some more
and
of
running
those.
like our properties and whatnot.
Yeah.
Kirsty be the full-time property manager, Scott the developer.
Do you guys like building the wealth more or building the cash flow?
Cash flow.
Oh,
I don't know.
The month-to-month cash flow. Interesting.
I don't know. I think the wealth, like
You like-
building,
yeah.
like that.
I'm with you. I like doing my personal net worth statement and adding it up,
Yeah.
and I'm like, ooh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
No, seriously, like honestly, like I hadn't
No,
objected.
it's just such a Neal thing to say.
I know, well, but I mean, tell me you're not like if there was no money in it, Chandler.
I gotta know.
As he flips around the $10,000 stack, he hasn't let go of that thing since we got in here. But no, like seriously, like it's exciting, right? Like you're to think that you
You gotta
started with
celebrate the
something.
wins. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
You gotta celebrate the wins, and you work your butt off. And to see that actually going somewhere is exciting. Because to be honest with you, you don't see a lot of cash in hand. Like you don't. This is
Yeah,
not a game where
That's
you're
why
just
I
like
like the cash flow.
exactly.
That's
So-
why I want to work up to that so that
Yeah.
I can buy a ridiculous car on somebody else's dime. Right? Like that's kind of that's the goal.
What are you looking at, Chandler? Don't look at me.
Nothing.
This is why they're friends.
I love when the car analogies come up.
Yeah, we're holding back too, but I'm not gonna get into it.
Anyways, yeah. So, okay, yeah. So I think you guys both have differing interests in that, and I think everyone likes both ends of it. The cash flow is kind of like allows you to have some freedom and achieve a certain lifestyle without necessarily having to work a 9 to 5. And then while the wealth building, you know that you're in a position to be comfortable for the rest of your life. There's something you can pass down to your kids, maybe as a legacy, like those kinds of things. So I think both of those are nice. And like I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, is that where there's not a lot of cash in hand, it's nice to do the P&W because it's kind of a reminder that things are going well. Because I know I was living in a duplex that I paid $200,000 for, and I didn't really have a ton of cash. I had 30, 40 units. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, is this making any sense? And then sort of run through it and be like, oh, okay, like there might be a little bit of like, I've made some equity. I've made some progress here. I'm actually doing something that's worthwhile.
Yeah.
It was a nice reminder. And it's kind of a feel good again, right? Like it's not something.
Yeah, and in ours it's tough because you always feel like when you're doing one of these big projects, it's taking away from your cash flow job, right? And that was always like I would notice these dips in my business, like, oh, I bought a building, like my sales would drop off, and then you know it would always ebb and flow. But then you have to come back, like, man, I made this much money off that building from a net worth standpoint.
It helps
feels
to keep
good,
you
man.
motivated. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, everyone likes doing it. The projects are fun. The construction's super fun, and to see like your start and your finish is exciting.
Yeah.
But again, at the end of the day, you're here to achieve something with your life, and I think that kind of rolls into our question that we like to ask everyone that we have, and kind of what success means to you. And yeah, so I don't know if you guys want to let us know what you think. If you each want to give one separate, or do you guys have one you've shared?
I think it's together.
It's,
yeah.
it's pretty much together.
Yeah, so pretty much. I'm just kidding. I mean, it's a pretty common answer is like the freedom and
Yeah.
like what keeps us going is like we kind of it's not really an acronym, but WIP like wealth, independence, and like passion. Like we love doing this. Like we truly do, and I think that's why, you know, we haven't cried yet since the flood, and we want that freedom to be able to like go travel or like build homes without as much risk, I guess, because we have our income properties to lean on and whatnot. So I guess success would be kind of like what you just said about the whole fire thing. Like,
Yeah.
like being able to build homes,
Yeah.
and if one catches on fire, it's like it's okay. Or like,
As long as nobody's hurt.
or like being
Yeah.
in Italy while that happens, like it's okay. So
yeah.
that's kind of what success looks like.
Yeah.
For
And once you
us.
build the portfolio and you build up a callus and a tolerance to these things.
Yeah.
Because now, like, if a tenant calls me and says something is leaking, it's like, okay, you know, it's raining out right now, like, especially if it's a roof leak. Like, the reality is, like, no roofer's going to go up on that roof right now and fix it.
Yeah.
So there's only so many things we can do here tonight. And, you know, I'll come over there and we'll do it. But the first time it happens, you're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do here. This is the biggest deal ever. And now I'm just like, all right, we're going to poke a hole in the ceiling. It'll find the low point. It'll drain down here. You'll put it in a bucket, and we're going to deal with this tomorrow.
You build a tolerance over time.
Yeah. And that's why you kind of have to get through these things, and they get easier every time.
Scott,
Because they will happen again.
Scott, does your modified definition of success include a Denali diesel dually?
Yep.
Okay, just checking. All right. Yeah.
Right on. Well,
Denali and an
we need to
M3.
do part 2 of this because I want to hear how you guys make out with the Airbnb and even
Yeah.
how this whole insurance thing shakes down.
Yeah.
But people can also follow along with all that on social media. Rise Renos. I don't know what the exact handle is, but I think if you look up Rise Renos, you can track
Yeah,
it down.
yeah.
It's just that.
Yeah, before we end it though, I want to add one more thing too. Is what would you give like as a number one tip to someone getting started? Because I'd say a lot of people in your guys' similar position, and they're like,
I have a good tip for that.
Okay,
Is
can we do one each?
yeah, do one each.
Okay.
make sure your partner's on board.
Yeah.
Because that saved our bacon a lot.
Yeah, I actually wanted to delve into that, but it's only an hour-long podcast because I find that interesting
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
You mean partner? You mean spouse?
Spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, just to be sure, not like business partner.
No.
But
And
yes.
even like not like I'm like fully invested, like I help out with the renos and things like that, but
Yeah.
not even on that part is like if your partner doesn't want to be involved, they still need to be on board. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's
100%.
important too. Like if they just want
Yeah.
to sit back and watch you, they still need to be your cheerleader.
And understand the financial sacrifices that are because
Yeah.
they're going to be living
Yeah.
in that unit too, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, what's funny though is I'm the one who convinced him to do the live-in reno. So
Yeah, never again.
Yeah. And now, yeah, I don't know. I actually put a reel up recently about making a joke about that because I'm like,
Yeah.
But what was your tip?
oh gosh, what was it going to be?
Just
I need to
do
think
it.
about it. Oh, I know what it was. To like have an open mind and a growth mindset because like I know we keep talking about this flood, but I think it's important to like keep learning and don't just think you know everything because I swear every single day I'm learning something new about being a landlord and being an
Yeah.
investor. And on Saturday, because we have such open minds and a growth mindset, we were able to be like, okay, this is happening to us.
We literally
How do
just laughed it
we-
off at the
like,
time.
how do we
Yeah.
deal with it? We researched it. We talked to people. I think we texted
Yep.
you that night.
Yep.
So I think that's like really important is to be open-minded and be open to growing.
Roll with the punches.
Yeah, you keep learning.
Yeah.
I mean, even that like online form for the application, that's a little nugget that I'll take away from this. This idea of keeping your insurance updated is something I always sort of understood. Just kind of like, yeah, obviously you do that, but I don't talk to clients a lot lot that, to be
Yep.
honest with you.
Yep.
So I think that's a good tip for people. We got to wrap it up here, Neil, unless you got anything
No,
else.
nothing else. Yeah, when I cut you off there, like you were saying, I think it's good. You guys got to check out Scott and Kirsti, what they have going on at Rise Renos. They have amazing content, tips. They're constantly updating it with, like you said, reels, stories. You can see what's going on with their flood. Did you guys save some of those videos up there?
Yeah, we're going to put it on a highlight. And
Okay.
we also do giveaways for our upcoming Airbnb. So it's worth
Ooh.
following.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And last time, Happy New Year, everyone.
Yes. Happy New Year.
2022,
Happy New
it's going to be the
New Year.
year for great things.
If you're debating buying a rental, let's do it this year.
Let's do it, man. Set those goals, get it going, because 6 months from now, you'll wish you started 6 months ago. So start today.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for coming in, guys.
Thanks for having
Later.
us.
Peace.
Thanks for checking out the episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell button for notifications. If this is your first time here, check out our back catalog for more episodes. Thanks so much for watching.
When I was broke, I had rich habits. When I was broke, I had rich habits.